Now is a moment of truth. We're going to find out whether this industry can really collaborate. What happens if we're not able to do that?
Nobody wants this kind of volatility. We are really going to be dependent on some very brave and visionary industry leaders that are going to stick their neck out.
We have gone from being very transactional to now having longer-term contracts, enabling us to co-create the solutions of the future.
When we made this decision about commit to using algae oils, it was an investment. It was a fairly high price, but we made that commitment and then the fish oil price went sky high, so it turned out to be a very good investment.
If this demand-supply gap continues growing, just like how fish meal and fish oil become strategic ingredients, these novel ingredients will also be strategic ingredients and not just alternatives.
We just need simply your support to be able to scale. We need contracts with you. We need to work with you, not tomorrow, but today.
The consumers of fish oil, 1/3, rough numbers, 1/3 is, or yeah, maybe a little less, is the omega, and then you have the salmon. So let's say those two combined, they consume about 2/3 of the global fish oil production, which both meet the omega-3. They are the top for the omega-3 producers, and for the feed. You have a huge increase in the price for certified fish oil. This very inelastic demand from salmon and from the omega really drove the prices sky high. The highest price we saw for omega was $12,000 per ton.
Now for fish oil, again, supplies have been relatively stable, but look at the dynamic. It's relatively stable, around 65–70% of the total use. However, it has been gradually declining. And over the last 10 years or so, these other industries have grown quite a bit. They've grown at roughly 4% CAGR. And there's no reason to believe that they won't continue growing. Even if we lower their growth rates, there's a high likelihood that if volumes of fish oil remain stagnant, and even if we use more byproducts and everything, they might come at the expense of aquaculture.
So what we need to be able to make the next step and scale up further is what we call a reliable market. The reliable market is what actually is a market that gives us volumes, so like a stable offtake at a price that keeps us viable, no matter what happens to the fish oil price or to the fish oil availability, so that we are not exposed to the volatility of fish oil. And actually, we are serving a market like that. Like it was mentioned, but we are also serving the human nutrition and the pet food market, which is a reliable market. When the fish oil prices came down, nothing happened to the volumes and the prices in that market. But that reliable market is absolutely not large enough for us to justify further expansion.
We look at demand of fish meal and fish oil from a fed aquaculture standpoint. And within this seafood space, aquaculture is probably going to drive all the growth that we forecast by over the next 10 years or so.
What will happen if we don't see an increase of EPA and DHA production? Without it, I don't see how the salmon production can grow, because it is really a bottleneck already.
So what is the problem with today's raw material basket? It's EPA and DHA is a bottleneck for the growth, and we cannot rely on using more forage fish from the ocean to support the growth. Therefore, access to new sources of EPA and DHA is very important.
And the main challenge we need to solve is the one of stable access to EPA DHA. That is the most important challenge we need to solve in this industry.
And on this slide, I've tried to summarize where are we with algae and insects. With algae, we estimate that the total supply of EPA and DHA combined from algae sources is roughly 20,000 tons. So great progress there when you think about it. Just in a few years, we've added 10% to the supply of EPA and DHA. That's pretty incredible.
And it's the same message again. Intensity is increasing. Historical correlations that we once assumed are probably not relevant anymore. The volatility is rising, and hence the unpredictability. Some people might say, okay, these recent anomalies, these recent fluctuations are just short-term dynamics. Me, as an analyst, where we're looking at more climate data, we're looking at more sea temperature data, we believe that this can actually become a recurring problem. So the question is, do we take this volatility on a year-on-year basis and deal with it, and deal with whatever cost fluctuations come with it? Or do we start zooming out, taking a longer-term view, and start trying to ensure the stability of the industry in the long run?
We have never had as good opportunity as now to make such commitments. It is clear we need to embrace all the alternative sources of EPA, DHA, and we need more scale of it. We need more supply of these ingredients. And then we need to offer our commitments so that investments can be made to scale these ingredients further.
Lastly, we cannot do this all by ourselves. We need to collaborate with the whole value chain. So collaboration is essential for reaching our targets.
4 points I wanted to share from a kind of consumer side perspective, consumer market perspective. Strengthen value chain collaborations is something that we've also been trying to work on with different parts of the supply chain. So building direct partnerships between feed manufacturers, farmers, processors, and retailers, trying to integrate these alternative ingredients into their supply chains through value chain projects. But we really need that this doesn't stay as a niche. We need this to be industry-wide adoption, more specific in terms of integrating alternatives into sustainability frameworks, and also setting clear sourcing requirements. Let's not just continue to say that alternatives, it's a nice to have, but let's set clear requirements of how much EPA DHA we want from alternatives. De-risking adoption through consumer insights, continuing consumer research is something we find very useful, also to have conversation with retailers. We know where acceptance is, where maybe more concerns are, and then find ways that we can navigate in terms of having a better conversation, a better communication towards the consumer. And this has to be done across different markets, not only France. Once again, different questions, same results, a ranking question, now asking for preference. Microalgae oil as the #1 alternative for fish oil. Farmed salmon oil comes in second, and then GM canola oil on third position.
As I also said, feed costs is 50% of our costs, so we need to, we cannot do everything, but we, of course, we have already shown that we are committed to take longer-term positions in some areas, and that is, of course, something that is important, I believe. And we also have a very good cooperation with the feed suppliers, where we have sustainability meetings, committees, where we discuss different alternatives, and I think that's also a very good way to move on, to discuss alternatives and get all views on the table.
Simply put it, if I'm loaning you money and there's more unpredictability on how much, when, or the certainty of me getting my money back, that will impact the cost of capital.
I mean, we are no longer a startup. We are much more of a mainstream ingredient now, and as that, we have to make sure that we are delivering the best thing that our customers need. And so we will keep on improving our product, reducing our carbon footprint, of course, reducing the cost. That is important to stay competitive moving forward, and stay very close to our customers, to our customer base, and work in these partnerships. I'm actually super optimistic that this thing that we're trying to make happen, that it actually will happen.